This content is brought to you by BEC Financial Technologies, developing and operating IT for Danish banks.
I'm thrilled to be here to talk about something that usually gets overlooked in our sphere, and that is the human side of testing. Who I am? My name is Alona Kovalenko, and I'm a senior QA engineer here at BEC. And this December, I'm celebrating my 18th anniversary as working as tester. And what I noticed during this period of time is that our biggest challenges, as well as our biggest strengths, aren't just technical. They are emotional, psychological, and interpersonal. Today, I want to explore with you 5 key areas that shape our work as testers. They are cognitive bias, motivation, stress, collaboration, and adaptability. At the end of this presentation, we are going to have Q&A session and open mic session as well, where you will be able to ask all your questions or share some insights and ideas. So let's start with cognitive bias. They are fundamental and inevitable part of being human. They are actually adopted by people to simplify all that amount of information that we receive every day. And they help us to make decisions quickly, although they can lead us astray. I will show you examples of 5 most popular cognitive bias and how they work in testing. And then we're going to talk how to mitigate them. So the first one is confirmation bias. You tend to notice things that do support your beliefs or ideas and ignore things that don't. In testing, it may be that when you do believe that the feature is buggy, you completely concentrate on testing that specific area and can miss issues elsewhere. For example, you are truly sure that login issue has some errors, and you concentrate on testing this area. But you can miss issues in payment workflow. Can you please raise the hands? How many of you have faced this bias in your practice? Okay, nice. So you know what I'm talking about. Let's move on. Anchoring bias. The first thing you learn or see sticks in your mind and influences how you judge everything else. For example, your first test showed that results are positive, everything is passed. And further retesting, you will not pay attention that much to this specific area because the idea that your tests are already successful is already anchored. It's unconsciously, but it happens. And another bright example, when the developer says to us, I've developed this feature and this has no issues. And again, unconsciously, we keep in mind this bias. I see you're nodding, and maybe you can raise your hands and show how many of you know what this bias is about. Okay, thank you. Next one, availability. You focus more on things that are easy to remember, even if they're not so important. For example, in testing, it can be when you recently caught some dramatic bug, and later on, you concentrate on this specific area again to test and retest. But again, people are nodding. I'm glad that it rings the bell for you. So you continue to test this specific area again, even if issues may be more critical and more important somewhere else. Overconfidence bias. When you tend to think that you're more skilled than you really are. And no, I'm not going to underestimate your abilities or professional skills. I do believe that if you have 3, 5, 20 years of experience, you know very well what you're doing. You know precisely this application or this sphere. You're a real pro, but 2 things that we always should keep in mind. First, exhaustive testing is impossible and every system is unique. And second one, we cannot always rely on our experience, and we should keep in mind that this bias can creep in subtly. And the 5th one is hindsight bias. After something has happened, it looked like it was too obvious all alone. For example, you missed the bug, and users caught it already after the release. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens. And the team says, it was so obvious before how we could miss this, but we could miss because of this bias. When I was thinking about my experience with this bias, I recalled one thing when we were working on game subscription testing, and we were told to verify front-end part because backend was covered mostly by another team. And we did our part, but before the release, we almost missed one serious critical payment backend workflow issue. And it's not something that I want to shift the responsibility to someone else. No, it's our shared responsibility to deliver quality product. But this bias influences how we design test cases, how we interpret results, and how we communicate with developers. That's why, what can we do to mitigate them? First, use diverse test scenarios to challenge our assumptions. Then, conduct peer reviews to expose blind spots. Use checklists to reduce reliance on memory. Rotate testers to bring some fresh perspective. Do the exploratory testing to uncover some unpredictable situations. Recognize when you are making assumptions. It's the first step to objectivity. And foster psychological safety for everyone in the team to feel comfortable, to raise questions, and challenge all the assumptions that we're doing. So these cognitive bias are a part of being human, and that is totally fine that we face them on our professional and personal life. But our main task as testers is to challenge these assumptions, uncover hidden risks, and also communicate with the team and improve the quality. That's why when we're recognizing these assumptions and working actively to mitigate them, we're not improving our quality only, but the whole development process. Now let's talk about motivation. Because, testing can be monotonous. It can be purposeless, maybe sometimes, when you do some repetitive regression testing, right? But then the question to you would be, what drives you? What gives you drive in your life? Any ideas? Money. I expected this answer, not gonna lie. But except for money, there should be something else, right? Sorry? More money. Okay, very powerful argument. Breaking things that you need to fix, you mean, right? Okay, breaks. Quality, improving quality. Thank you, because for me, it's also a part of my motivation. Anyone else wanted to? You're gamifying the process, right? Okay, a good attitude, I like it. Yes? Explore something new, yes? Okay, thank you very much for your ideas and sharings. For me, motivation partially comes also from purpose. When I know that I prevent real-life failures and I know that I'm protecting in some way user experience, it gives me joy, independently on whether it's a bank application or it's a game subscription. And also for testers, it's important to feel the growth and recognition. When we are the part of the whole development process, from the very beginning till the very end, when our feedback is valued, when we have enough area to grow, it's the moment where we thrive. One thing to reflect on that helped me actually to think on my career path is think about your responsibilities in general. What energizes you and what drains you? And then specify in that area that drives you and boosts your energy. Then you will have enough motivation to wake up and go to work every day. What else I wanted to say about motivation is actually you can also, as you mentioned, gamify the process. First, you can celebrate bugs as wins, not as failures. You can rotate your tasks, change them, to avoid monotony, or even maybe some projects if you have this opportunity. Also, you can try to specialize. If you want to become a tester in performance or accessibility, why not? To change this routine. But one minus that I've already spoiled before, but nonetheless, it's stress. Because it can be monotonous, repetitive, and right now in this section, I wanted to talk about stress not as a challenge, but rather as a tool. And here you can see the diagram based on Yerkes-Dodson law. It shows how stress affects performance. This is the curve with 3 zones: stress, eustress, eustress, and distress, sorry. And let's talk about them a little bit. Calm zone, it's your comfort zone, let's say. Here you have no stress at all. You're unmotivated, disengaged. It feels comfortable, yes, but it's not where the growth happens. Then we hit the sweet spot, it's eustress. In testing, it can feel when you hit the approaching deadline or you have encountered some critical bug. But this is stress with positive connotation. It boosts your performance and motivates you. But if we push too hard, we can find ourselves in distress zone. And this is already when stress becomes overwhelming. If you don't pay attention to your condition here, you can face fatigue, anxiety, burnout, or even some health problems. So when you feel that you're approaching to this zone, it's extremely important to take some actions. You can adjust your workload. You can add more work from home days if you have a hybrid option. And basically, don't stay silent. Talk about it with the team. Because stress is a signal. If you learn how to use it wisely, it can really help you in work and in all the tasks that you're doing. But this is a sweet theory. Bitter truth sometimes is that we don't have the opportunity to change the workload. Even when we are not silent and we share with the team, there are some last-minute changes, pressuring deadline, and we cannot change this workload, and we can then face stress or burnout. These conditions are different. Here you can see on the table how they're different, but actually, I wanted to emphasize here especially on burnout, because it's something that happens more and more often nowadays. And burnout, let's get back here for a little bit, because burnout doesn't look like exhaustion always. It can be fatigue, disengagement, drop in quality. It can be you or it can be your colleague who is suffering from burnout. And when it hits, it doesn't hit the individual only. It influences the whole work environment. How, you may ask? And thank you for this question, very accurate one. And here I have the answer for you. So first, it reduces productivity and job performance. Burnout tester cannot concentrate, actually. Doesn't have the motivation to explore some edge cases. Even some simple tasks can be overwhelming. That may lead to drop in quality and to delayed deadlines. And also, it facilitates a negative work environment because people within the team who are suffering from exhaustion or even burnout, they don't find the common solutions. They start to point fingers and can be passive-aggressive. Unfortunately, this creates a loop. Poor performance leads to frustration, which leads to more stress, and the cycle continues. So what can be done here in these situations when you feel that you are somewhere in that area? First, recognize the signs. Overwhelming, cynicism, fatigue. These are the signs that you need to pay attention to. Try to respect some boundaries between your teammates. You can also increase the breaks or use this do not disturb mode in Teams. And also I have 2 techniques that I wanted to share with you. that maybe they can be helpful for you further. I hope they won't be applicable for you, but just for you to know. First, the Eisenhower decision matrix. And the best way is to write down everything, because when you keep in mind, it's one thing, but if you write down all the tasks and responsibilities that you have, sometimes you may understand that you're not suffering from burnout, you're just too overwhelmed by keeping everything in mind. So think about what tasks are urgent and important, and obviously prioritize them. But if you find something that is not urgent and not important, just get rid of it, at least for some period of time. Then you will be able to come back to it, but not now. And one more thing that I'm personally using on a constant base, and it helps me to understand my current condition, is this table. So here you can see the table of 3 sections, and actually I have printed out these papers. If you want and use this technique, these printout papers, they will be on that red chair right after the presentation. Feel free to grab them. But the idea is as follows. Here you can see the row with the date. So one cell is per one date. And ideally to do it once a month, once per 2 months. And here you have physical, emotional, and professional conditions to evaluate your current state. And then you go one by one, answering all these questions and putting marks from 1 to 10, meaning 1 is terrible, 10 is perfect, nothing to change. For example, do you ask for help when you need support? And you put here 1 is you never ask, 10 you always do this with no problems. And then you go one by one with all these questions, and you see later on, even in 1 month, you repeat this exercise and you see the dynamic, because answers will constantly change. And then you start to analyze, what was the root cause for this change? Maybe you need to pay attention to it, or it's something that is intentional, and it's some period of time, you know why it's happening. So I wanted to finalize this part of presentation with words of American director of applied psychology, who said that when workers are suffering from burnout, their productivity drops, and they may become less innovative and more likely to make errors. If this spreads throughout an organization, it can have a serious negative impact on productivity, service quality, and the bottom line. So testing is a marathon, not a sprint. Let's pace ourselves. And a couple of words about communication, because we are not working in vacuum. We are constantly communicating with business analysts, product owners, sometimes even end customers. But mostly, we're communicating with developers. But here is the catch. Testers and developers usually talk in different languages. Testers are talking about risks and edge cases, while developers are talking about architecture and performance. Bridging that gaps takes efforts. And recently, we were working with a team on some important project. And we have already created a pool of test cases, and then developers offered their help to have a look from technical perspective. And that was the moment where I realized 2 things. First, it's really important to share testing strategy early, because this brings transparency. And transparency builds trust in the team. When people know what and why you are doing this, they understand you more and they trust you more. And second one, testing is also about asking the right questions. What are the risk areas? What assumptions are we making? And this is important inside a QA team as well. Clear documentation, open feedback channels, using the same tools, it really brings the value. Even a regular chat, asking how are you, it also helps to improve the general atmosphere within the team. So what can we here do to improve this communication? Use bug reports as conversation starters, but not blame game. You can also share your testing strategy early, because transparency builds trust. Ask the right questions that that can help you to understand technical perspective, especially if you're a manual tester, as I am. and join all the meetings, dailies, plannings, retros. It also helps for everyone to be on the same wave. And the last point I wanted to highlight with this presentation is learning and adaptability, because IT sphere is pretty dynamic, and remaining static here is not an option at all. What can we do to keep up with this pace? First, join some meetups, conferences, as we're here now, read some blogs, join communities. Use all this theoretical knowledge in practice in your project. And after each project or iteration, analyze what worked and what didn't. And then you can change the direction of your development, taking into account what worked. And also, you can encourage your team to share. Create a space for creativity, because every bug teaches us something. So what I wanted to say about all this presentation, that testing is not about finding and reporting bugs. It's about curiosity, resilience, and communication. It's about understanding how people think and how systems fail. So let's challenge our bias, support each other, and foster the positive communication and work. And thank you for being part of this journey and making quality our shared responsibility.
Who would like to start discussion? Oh.
Thank you very much, Alex from Digital Turbine. A question back to the topic of professional burnout and actually cure for professional burnout, as you say.
Do you want me to come back with the slides?
No necessarily.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's okay. Could you please give some tips from the dimension of manager or team leader of probably HR business partner when the employees demonstrate very clear symptoms of burnout, but they just don't care about that, at least if you ask them. They say, wow, I don't need your questionnaires, come on, I even have one stand-up call every day, I really tired of this stand-up call and blah, 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 it's too many, 15 minutes per day, blah, blah, blah. How a manager, team leader, or HR business partner bring the burnt out employee to the understanding that that person is actually have a problem with performance. I mean, a part of firing that person, of course, yes. Let's say we still want that person to stay in the company. Let's imagine this magic situation. And yeah, and like push this person to start thinking about own mood and burnout and level of performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this question. I hope you are not asking it from your personal experience. Okay. But from my perspective, the first thing that any person who is working with this person suffering from burnout can start by talking and by giving examples. But it's also important to feel this difference between pressing, pushing on this person, trying to persuade, or just highlighting. Because, for example, if you say to a person, look, we have faced recently this conflict and it influenced on me personally negatively. I felt uncomfortable. I would like not to repeat the situations like this, but I wanted to share with you because it really influences on our communication and it influences on the whole team. And I do believe that this talk can be an icebreaker for the person to pay attention to it. Because it's impossible when you are even suffering from burnout or you are in stress and someone says to you, calm down, hold on, just relax, let's talk. You feel that you're needed, that someone is listening to you, that someone pays attention to you. And then you start to pay attention to your condition as well. Does it answer the question? Thank you. Yes, please. Do you need a mic or no?
Thank you, Luna, for presentation. You started your presentation about the bias at workplace, and in my experience, I encountered about 2-3 times when the developers express a bias toward me, like either it was like a negligence to my request answers or unpleasant answers, like showing you're kind of dumb or something like that. I don't know what causes the position. They can see the intellect channel, a photo or location or whatever. How to challenge, how to should we officially report to HR partners, because management doesn't like those who complains, and they like, oh, we don't need drama at workplace, so and so it stay unpunished, something like that, and it follows something. How to challenge, how to protect against the bias in workplace. Thank you.
So the question, if you haven't heard there, if I got it correctly, you are experiencing this bias and you're talking with developers that you want to fix it, but they, let's say, behave in a toxic way and they don't pay attention to what you're saying?
I was asking something. Some developers, they just neglect, and my answer, my question stayed without any answer, or the answer was not like pleasant. Okay, so the answer was different. Then I mean, pointing me to another way, something. So why do you do that? So
Like blame game.
Yeah, play something like that. So instead of taking this and to solve, they was like blaming me, something like that.
But is it a tendency or it's one-time situation that you faced?
One time, but there is a tendency of particular people tend to do that like rude manner. So it's like toxic people, but they are like, they still in company because maybe high skill or whatever, or something like that. So management is aware about, because everyone is in a cockpit, but nobody cares about that.
So everyone is aware of this situation, that there is someone extremely skilled, but
one time, but it's
but it
like,
influences on your condition, right? I do understand completely, and it plays role. And yeah, staying apart from this person is not an option, as far as I understand. You need to cooperate with the person.
not regularly, because we have a lot of teams and depends. So a lot of products, it depends.
Okay, so from my perspective, the first thing you need to understand is whether you're going to work on a constant base with this person or not. Because if it's your team member who is constantly neglecting everything that you're addressing to him or her, that's one thing. And it's something that needs to be done in the general atmosphere in the team. And you can try to foster this positive work environment, but you're not the only one who is responsible for it. So maybe they can, like, you can ask manager or HR for support with not like pointing finger on this person, not saying that it's his or her blame, but like asking maybe to do some team activity, because it also fosters collaboration, right? To team up people together. And in this case, the atmosphere can become less stressful, especially when you have tight deadlines during this time. But if it's one person, then do you need to do anything?
We have like hundreds of employees, and so we can cross with them within months, like once per 2 months, per 3 months. So it's not like on daily basis work. I can see from the communication in channel, it continues with others, something like that. So I mean, me, it doesn't impact me. It's like emotional uncomfortability to.
But here is the tricky part, that these people with whom you feel uncomfortable to work with, they feel comfortable working with each other.
I mean, in general, how to challenge? You said that we need to challenge this. How to officially, like, any tips to challenge any bias in general?
Actually, my point was to challenge our assumptions. When we understand that we follow these templates unconsciously, that it's the time to challenge ourselves. But if we're talking about environment in general and to challenge developers mostly or some other team members, it's another point. So it's not connected mostly with the bias, but rather with communication with team members, I would say. And then it's, again, important to understand what is the temperature, let's say, in the community you're working on, and whether you can do anything from your side to improve or influence on this. If you, in your case, say that you cannot influence these team members, then maybe you can choose the projects that do not have the part of team members as these people you don't want to talk to and you don't want to communicate with them on a regular basis. Maybe it would be the case because if everyone in management team is aware of the situation and they don't do anything with this, so maybe you can rotate some tasks and choose people with whom you would like to work.
Thank you very much. We would like to present the awards for you.
Thank you very much.